Welcome to the eighth episode of the Mak and Riley podcast, where today we have Erik the Pain Resolver on with us. This is something we've been talking about for quite a long time, and we're stoked to have you on, Erik. So, how are you doing?
Thanks for that intro, man. I appreciate it. Erik the Pain Resolver. I pretty much just recently came up with that name because I just wanted to get a little bit more specific about what I'm trying to put out in the world and the type of people that I'm trying to help. Yeah, thanks, man. I'm happy to be on here.
Yeah, cool. By the way, I love that name.
Me too.
Thank you.
It's like
Appreciate that.
it's what you do. It's like Erik the Pain Resolver. Like recently, I've been on this thing where if you're known as someone who can solve problems, then you become popular, and then if you become popular, people pay money for that. So you're Erik the Pain Resolver. That's your problem solve. If I have pain, go to Erik.
I think too, everybody has pain, even if they don't realize.
Exactly, exactly. And he's like, leave your emotional pain at home, but I could do the external stuff, you know.
Sometimes emotional pain is big. Is a big part of it too.
It comes into it, man. But there's a fine line. In fact, we could talk about that if you want to. But I want to kick it off here. Like, what's your background? What brought you in to coaching at all? When did you start coaching, by the way?
So I started coaching back in 2018. That
Cool.
is,
Yeah.
I pretty much just started with a NASM certification. I was at a retro fitness gym, and I was just like trying to do something with my time while I was figuring out what to major in college because I had just graduated with a degree that I was like, what am I going to do with this? It was a criminal justice
What
degree
was it?
actually,
Oh yeah, cool. Okay. Yeah.
and I was like, yeah, I don't want to do anything there. So let me try to figure out something else to do that I could actually make good use of my time. And my whole purpose was always to try and help people in some way, shape, or form. So I was like, let me do it in fitness. I'm already doing this stuff for a couple of years now. And yeah, that's where it all started and it kind of just built up over time. And then when it came down to deciding what I wanted to study in school, probably about like 2 years later, I was like, hey, why don't I major in exercise science? Like this stuff is pretty awesome. And just did a full dive and did a full bachelor's degree with that. Yeah, I loved it. I mean, it didn't even feel like I was going to school when I was doing that stuff. It was just like
Yeah.
came natural. At first, I wanted to be a chiropractor, and that's where I wanted to take that degree. And then once I got there, I was like, yeah, I don't want to be a chiropractor.
Which understandably so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've always believed that I ended up in this space because I don't have to just be one thing, you know. And whereas, like, if you're a chiropractor, like, nothing against chiropractors, I love them. I actually have one that I go to religiously. But if you are a thing, you are just that. But if you are a coach in the fitness space, you can do many different things and focus on many different things and change your direction. I mean, I'm sure you guys have had different directions in your entire life of
For sure.
coaching.
For sure.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I feel like I've never really thought of it that way, but that's really true. Because, like you said, like if you're a chiropractor or even if you're a PT, that's what you do.
Yeah. And we do talk about that all the time. Like if I've had this conversation quite a bit recently. If someone were to have, because we were talking pretty recently about like certifications, board certifications, any sort of certifications as being a coach, whatever it is, because people ask that. They're like, well, what's your certification, what's your schooling, so on and so forth. And you have that conversation. It's like, well, I've been doing this a very long time. I know what works, and if you trust me, then you pay me and we sign a contract, and if you don't, you're welcome to find anyone else. But if you were going to find the most like official certified path, you're going to end up with a general practitioner, you're going to end up with a nutritionist, you're going to end up with a physical therapist. None of them are going to talk to each other. You're probably going to end up with a therapist of some sort, like a general therapist.
Yeah.
None of them are going to talk to each other. None of them are going to know what's going on with each other. You might have an endocrinologist also on board. It's like, well, okay, what's going to be
Yeah.
more effective? You got a GP, an endocrinologist, probably a chiropractor, physical therapist, a therapist, a nutritionist, and nobody's talking with each other. You could pay all these people all this money, and it's not a coherent program. We kind of do all of that.
That's what happens with a lot of my clients is they'll be working with some like functional med doctor. And then they're like, here's my labs to review. And they're like, wait, I don't even need to work with them. I'm like, no, you can You can boot them, and I'm seeing everything you do every single day. You're meeting with them once a month, if that.
Yes.
And you have like basically constant communication with me. So it makes sense to just work with me because I know every single facet of everything.
Yeah. And it's that constant communication. Like we talked about not too long ago. You just, you go to a general practitioner, you got 15 minutes and then we'll see you in 3 months. There's
Hmm.
not a lot that goes on there. Like a lot of what we do, it's troubleshooting on a daily basis because anything can change.
No, absolutely. I think
Especially with what you do, Eric. Resolving pain. Like you gotta try something, see how that works, try something, see how that works, so on and so forth. So like what is your kind of process for working through your specific niche, I
Yeah.
guess you could say.
I'm curious too if you have like a method when somebody comes to you and they're like, man, like I've had chronic low back tightness, and you like, what is your method to uncover, okay, where is this stemming from?
mhm. Yeah, that's actually a very solid question because I think in yes, I have a method, but it's very broad at first, and then we slowly start to narrow it down. So a lot of the times, people don't really know how long they've had pain. So I just completely opt out of that question, or where the pain came from. Right? People usually do not know unless they fell and they're like, oh, I felt it from that fall. But typically, I ask questions as in like, do we have any sort of internal health issues, right? So we start usually internal, right? Do we have any sort of gut issues? How long have you had them? And then we kind of just build on that. So for example, if it is specifically to lower back pain, then and we have gut issues, then I'll say, okay, then most likely we have some inflammation in the core. It only takes about zero point 0.8 pounds of inflammation in the core or in the gut to turn off the TVA. And a turned off TVA means you don't
That's
have a
interesting.
supported lower back. So we can say, all
Yeah.
right, that's easy. Let's start there. Let's just start with TVA activations, AM and PM, and let's also do a physical assessment where I can watch you squat and lunge and hinge, and I can see your spine from different angles to see what exactly you're doing. Because, I mean, it's at least for me, it's pretty obvious. If somebody does a hinge pattern and their lower back is arched, then I say, okay, that's most likely an overactive psoas or the
Yes.
rectus femoris. Let's look there, and then I'll have them do a
Yeah.
lunge, and I'll be able to pretty much see from there if that's where they're getting the pull from, versus like having a rounded lower back. I mean, like very basic stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
That's so funny because I used to do that quite a bit is I'd have duck butt with everything because that's like the athletic thing to do is stick your butt out.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're really squatting a lot of weight or you're deadlifting a lot and you're actively pushing your butt out, that causes a lot of dysfunction. I had to stop squatting just because of that.
that is actually
So I don't
really
know if
That's
that's a
funny.
big
cool.
secret.
The
What's
whole
that?
duck butt thing.
What was that?
I said that was really funny that you mentioned that, like the whole like duck butt thing, how it's like
Yeah.
the athletic thing to do, and
Yeah.
that's the thing that I always shake my head at all athletic coaches or even strength coaches that because I've had football athletes, soccer athletes, basketball athletes, and they've been taught to squat to stick their butt out, where that's
Yes.
the biggest flaw, and that usually is what is at the root of people's issues in terms of form.
So
Yeah.
I've actually never heard of duck butt. I can assume what it is, but that's not the same. That wouldn't be the same as like butt wink, right?
That's actually the opposite. The
Got
duck
it.
butt, think
Okay.
of a butt, you're like your butt is poked out so far. You
Okay, so
look
it
like a duck.
can't butt wink and shift under.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's like stick your butt out as far as you possibly can.
So are you then like very anteriorly tilted
Yes,
or no? Okay. Okay.
absolutely.
Got
Yeah, yeah, and
Anterior.
yeah, because then it would
it. Yeah.
be
So like,
your lower back is arched if you're
Yeah,
anteriorly
yeah, yeah,
tilted.
yeah. So
Yeah,
very anterior. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah,
okay, got it.
It
which
happens
is
a
like
lot.
99% of bodybuilders.
It is.
Yeah.
And the way I had to fix that, and I think it's kind of, I don't know if you'd say TVA, but how I fix that is I took a band and I would pin it like knee height on something. I'd lay down on my back and then wrap the band around my knees. So I'm on my back, but my knees are bent. Does that kind of make sense? Like here's
and
my
you're
back
and the
and here's
band
my,
is pulling
here's
your
my,
legs away from you.
yep, those are pulling it away. And then I'm pushing because my back would naturally be arched in that
Yeah,
situation. And so I'm actively pushing my low back into the ground as that band is pulling me back. And then I'll have a kettlebell that I bring down and above behind me and kind of touch the ground and then come back
nice.
up. And then
Yeah,
in that process, especially when you're here, your low back is yeah, it's got like the greatest tendency to arch like crazy when you're down like that. That point is where you're pushing your low back into the ground, and I mean your abs are shaking like a bastard. You know what I mean? You're shaking like crazy, but that helped a ton with that.
That's huge. So you were pretty much teaching yourself how to brace properly.
Yeah, like yeah, exactly, how to brace. And then in a squat or a deadlift movement, you're like trying to butt wink a little bit, like relying on your abs a little bit more, if
Yeah,
that makes sense.
100%.
But that took a very long time to get through. I mean, maybe like a year or so.
Actually, that's like one of the cues that I use for clients that have the tendency to do that overarching of their lower back is instead of saying tighten your abs when you're doing things, I say put your ribs down. Because the second that you
Mm,
drop those
I like
ribs,
that.
you're completely changing the shape of your body.
What I tell clients, and I was going to ask you what cues you like to give, especially for beginners. I like to say stack your pelvis over your ribs. So that's the same as, like, I guess, tilting those ribs down.
Hmm.
And so I was curious, what kind of cues do you typically give when you can tell, like, okay, this person has no idea how to brace their core? Because I think a lot of people also think, like, okay, brace my core, like, suck in.
Hmm. Yeah, that's the biggest compensation is like pulling in, because people are just trying to make themselves skinnier typically. But no, the main thing that I do is if I have to teach someone to brace their core because they have no idea how to use their core, is I'll have them first breathe into their abdomen, and then I'll say, okay, now make that really hard. And that's just kind of step one. Okay, now you understand how to make it hard, right? When there's a space there.
Mm,
All right, so
hmm.
now step two, now we breathe into the abdomen, and now without breathing out, now pull it in. That's the other feeling I want you to make a connection with. And now we're not going to breathe into the stomach, we're just going to make those two feelings happen at the same time. And then usually I'll have them laying down on the ground while we're doing this, and then I'll say, okay, let's create that feeling that you just felt. And the thing I'm going to check for is that your ribs are not sticking out, right? Because a lot of times people that have that tendency to arch or arch the lower back or brace improperly is they'll end up flaring their ribs.
Yes, I see that a ton. That's a power lifter thing. Big chest, big ribs.
Hmm.
And then
Mm-hmm.
you got a massive duck butt.
Yeah,
Or two,
Like
at
when
the
that goes
neck.
up, like you have to compensate.
100%.
I see a lot of neck strain up,
Yeah,
like looking, like kind of turtling,
I've
or
seen
especially with like RDLs, their head will come up.
that's typically a compensation because something actually a really cool thing that I learned. I don't know if this is like general knowledge or not, but when I studied under the Czech Institute, which is corrective holistic exercise kinesiology,
I've heard
they,
of that.
I learned that no matter what, your lower back or your lumbar spine will always mirror your cervical spine and vice versa.
Hmm.
So if
I
you're
don't think that's general knowledge.
oh, okay, so cool.
I don't think it is.
I'm glad I dropped it in there because if your lower back, let's say, is arching, let's just throw a number out there at 30 degrees, your cervical spine has to arch at 30 degrees as well, or has to extend. So anybody that's doing this is most definitely doing the opposite, just because
Now that you say that,
and
I see that. I see that because whenever I'm giving somebody a cue, okay, don't tilt your neck up, they're also arching through the low back. So that made everything just click in my brain for like years and years and years of coaching and watching form. That's insane.
That is crazy. Yeah.
that's
How the
awesome.
body, like every action has a reaction.
Hmm.
And something I've been kind of diving into lately is if you have like if you because I'm working a lot with like a lat spread. Like we've been kind of texting back and forth a lot about this, Eric. Like working on a lat spread. Sometimes if you have one side that's way spread out or way extended, and the other side's kind of tucked in, it may not be that the side that you're having trouble that's stuck. It may not be that side. It may be the other side
Yeah.
because it's like pulling everything one direction
Yeah.
versus the other. Because one thing I noticed is I would do that and I worked so much on the one side that was stuck. But what I found was, and I don't know the correlation, but the side that I was able to extend really well, I had a lot more tightness in my subscapularis on that side,
Hmm.
not the side that was stuck. I don't know why that is.
That happened to Will as well. He had like, I guess, like a stuck lat. Like he couldn't get that lat to flare. He
Hmm.
had a whole other host of issues with his scapula and winging and stuff. But I'm gonna run that by him and see. Let's check the other side.
Yeah, I mean, a
Could
lot of
be.
times
Yeah.
too, it's like if that's an imbalance that's happening aesthetically, it's already happening functionally, and it had been happening for months or years at a time. So if we have an instability on the left side, let's say the way I think is our body connects in oblique lines. So for example, your left lat and your right glute should connect, and then that
Hmm.
same side, hamstring and adductor should all work together as well. So for example, if you have an imbalance, and let's say for you, Riley, you had that subscat that had extra tension, we may see an issue for you connecting that lat with the opposite glute. And if that's the
Mm.
case, and that's already an imbalance, then you most likely shift your weight. And so your opposite side that doesn't have the issue is counter stabilizing at all times, most likely
Yes.
overutilizing
Yeah.
things like the lower traps, the rhomboids, which is keeping that lat stuck. Right? But it's
Yes.
actually just tightening because it's trying to do its job for the other side.
Yes. That explains it perfectly. Yeah. Because once I start working on the other side, things start coming together a little bit
You know,
better.
it's actually going to
It's
blow your fucking mind.
what?
I had a client who could not turn on his lat, his right
Hmm.
lat. And this is something I learned through the Czech Institute. We use
Like
something called,
he just couldn't like that
well,
action
he
of
couldn't
flaring the
engage it
lat.
like in a lat pull down in a row. He's like, I can't feel it. And I'd be like, this muscle, and I'll poke it. And I'm like, this muscle, and engage it. And he's like, I can't feel it. I'm like, okay,
Could you feel it contracting when he did the movement or no?
barely. It would be like left lat locked in, tight, and like I could punch it. The right lat, it was like I could still push my finger through it, but he was contracting, but barely. So I was like, all right, let's just do something real quick because you don't have issue, you barely have issues with your glutes, so it's an oblique, somewhat an oblique issue. But I want you to stand up tall, and he had the issue on his right lat, and I was like, I want you to do eye circles to the right. And he would do them to the left. And he's like, that's easy. He did them to the right. He was like, shit, I got a massive headache right now. And I was like, that's good. Okay, we found a disconnect. Your brain isn't connecting to that lat. Let's just do that through the
What?
eyes because your eyes are part of your vestibular system, which is meant to create balance in your body, whether it's like balance standing or just like balance overall, like through all your muscles. He did that. I got him back on the ground. He did 10 of them. I got him back on the ground. Because we were doing an alternating Superman to engage the posterior oblique chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
He lifted that right arm, lat on, and he was like, "What?"
That's insane. That's
That's
crazy.
crazy. What?
It's
I
wild,
would have
but
never known.
yup. And so I was literally like, "Dude, that's gonna be part of your AM routine. Every single day, you're gonna do
Do
10 eye
right
circles."
circles.
Uh
So now, what if you have issues on both sides?
huh.
Like
Engaging.
you can't flare your laps on either side. You can't feel either of your laps. You can't feel either.
Practice. Sometimes too, like I'm just gonna add, sometimes you gotta have muscle.
Well, yeah,
Sometimes you
yeah,
gotta have enough muscle to
For sure.
engage the thing.
right. Because you can't feel it if it's not there.
Yeah, that does happen sometimes with bodybuilders. They're like, I just can't feel my lat. And it's like, you don't really have lats. Let's build some lats, and I promise you'll feel them more and more,
Yeah.
But anyway, just had to
And
throw that in.
there's actually a whole science side to that too, because this I kind of go on the science brain a lot of times, and the science brain is that when you first start to exercise, you can only activate between like 20 to 30% of the fibers in your muscles. Whereas
Yeah.
the longer you train, then it increases to like 80, 90, which is why like pro bodybuilders, for example, can curl a 10-pound dumbbell and get a crazy pump, right?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
they can literally just pull that weight with just their bicep.
Yes. Yeah. That's
So
something
you're
I
saying like, okay, maybe your average Joe that's starting out at the gym, they're doing a bicep curl. They're also recruiting like their forearm to get it up. But the pro
Momentum,
bodybuilder is
shoulder.
just using their bicep. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Just the motor unit from their bicep. Okay.
Exactly.
yeah. And that's something I dive into. Like if someone's really struggling to grow a muscle, like we need to make that flip. We need to flip that switch for where you're like only activating 20, 30, 40% of that muscle. We need to get you to a point where you're activating more and more of that muscle and directing more of that stimulus to that actual muscle. Then you're going to build that muscle. Because then a lot of people, like you see people get impatient. And this is where you probably get a lot of pain that comes up too. And a lot of the stuff that you troubleshoot, Eric, is people just want to do a lot of weight.
That's what I was
And
going to say.
people say that all the time, like ego lifting, you want to do a bunch of weight. But how does that look in your physique? You look dense, but you're just not big. Your muscle doesn't have any pop to it. Your muscle, it's just like you're
You
dense
look
enough
like
to do a lot of
strong man,
weight.
but way
Yeah,
smaller
yeah,
and way
you're just
weaker.
But you're like, oh, I can't. I should do more drugs. I need to eat more food. It's like you're just not, and you can't even say you're just not training hard enough because a lot of times, it's people will be like 8, 10 RAR, and they're like, yeah, I end the set there, and you're like, yeah, you need 25 sets to get enough stimulus in a muscle because you're just cutting it off way too soon.
Right.
But so you can't just say like train hard enough. It's like you just got to train better.
Yep.
Just train
I
better.
think the hard part is,
But it's
especially
just,
for men, is like you're like, hey, you need to pull back on load a lot, so we're actually using your tricep or whatever. And they're like, but I can do 110 pounds. And you're like,
you've been
yeah,
doing
but not using
110
your
pounds
tricep.
wrong for how? It's like, okay, cool. How you been doing that? It's like, oh, I've been doing it for 10 years. Like, cool. You've been
Yeah.
doing it wrong for 10 years. Like, congratulations. You're still a
That
beginner. Like,
that is
now let's go back.
probably
Let's cut it back down.
that's
Start
probably
over
something
again.
that hurts that person so much when you tell them that you've been doing it wrong for 10 years.
It sucks. But there's two things you can do: baby your ego, or do it right.
Hmm.
Like, figure out how I can actually get better. But if you're just too caught up in like, I've been doing this for 10 years, blah blah blah, I'm whatever, like we were kind of talking about this yesterday, Mackenzie, like people just can't admit what they don't know, like they're just stuck in it's like you're just probably not going to progress. And you're just going to
Yeah.
get a lot of pain. I mean, you're going to be doing way too much weight for way too long. You're not going to get a lot of progress, and then you're going to end up in Eric's hands. So, it's
Hmm.
kind of, I
Which
don't
good
do
for Eric. I mean, keep doing
that.
it, and then once you're ready to set that ego aside, then you can DM Eric.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
until then, you're probably gonna remain stuck.
Yeah,
He's gonna be like,
because
you enjoy
my
pain?
my programs crush egos 100%.
Yeah.
Because I've had clients who are like, yeah, I deadlift 475, I'm squatting 515, I bench 315 for reps. I'm like, okay, here's a 5. Lay on your stomach, lift this with a one straight arm above your head,
I've done those. That's
and
tough.
they're like,
That's so
I,
tough.
they're like, huh? This is a 5? And I'm like, yeah,
5 pound
you're weak.
swimmers. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Or
I'm not
kettlebells.
sure.
Another one is like kettlebells. If you get a small kettlebell and then
Oh
you do
yeah,
like a single arm shoulder military press with them,
Yes.
and you're like shaking and you can't
Like
do
a
it.
bottoms up one or just like regular kettlebell?
Bottoms up. Yeah, yeah. Where the ball's up here and the handle's down
Yeah.
here, and you got to like balance it. You
Yep.
get humming real
Those are
fast.
one of my shoulder builders after when I finally started building on my shoulder again.
Really. Did you have an injury or something?
Yeah, I had a crazy. This actually happened in a really stupid way because
Always
when I
does.
between the ages of like 14 to 17, I was a skateboarder, and I just like loved that. That was like my pastime. And whenever I get together with
Yeah.
friends, we would just like mess around and do crazy stuff. And I
Yeah.
heard it doing the simplest thing. Like we were on flat ground, the entire street was flat, and I just did like one of those like ollies.
Yeah.
And somehow, because I wasn't paying attention, I just missed it, and I just completely went aerial horizontal and landed on my elbow, and it just went crunch, and the entire labrum was just gone. Like I went and got it scanned, and the reading, they were like, your labrum is shattered. They were like, you're gonna need surgery, and I was like, nope.
Not doing that.
I was like,
Sucks.
yeah,
so
That's
it's
what did
funny.
you
I
do?
used to skateboard too. Man, the quickest way to mess yourself up is messing around on a skateboard. I
such
busted
a,
out my two front teeth doing that.
what's that?
I busted out my two front teeth.
I did that on a scooter,
Jeez.
not a school, but
Same thing. I did that on a scooter too. I broke out my two front teeth on a scooter too.
yeah, and they turned black.
Oh,
Yes.
But they were baby
you have
teeth,
fake
so
ones?
they just kind of fell out.
you guys are
They're
making
fake.
me feel lucky then.
So my two front teeth, I've knocked them out like 7 times.
Okay, I've only had it once,
my,
and
my,
they didn't fall out. They just the root like died, and they turned black.
oh, see, mine were like shattered. Like right now, there's only enough tooth to like hold the cap on. Like if you saw my real
For
tooth,
your
it would
front
just be like
tooth?
this sliver of just grossness.
That's interesting.
It's
I've never heard of that.
But anyway, the
For your
skateboard
front
days. You bring up
tooth,
the skateboard
really?
days. I'm like, oh gosh.
Yeah, the skateboard days were crazy, but that was the end of it. And then I just never
So when
accepted.
did you get back? When were you like, okay, I'm gonna address this shoulder thing?
Um, I never got back to skateboarding after that because I had just started working out probably like a year before that, maybe 2 years. Not that much,
And when
not
was
that
this
much
again?
longer.
How old were you?
What's that?
And when was this again? How old were you?
So let's see, 2017. I'm 31 right now. Um, wow, can we do that math real quick?
2017, so like 8 years ago, 31, 20, so 24 ish, 23, 24.
Nah, I think I was a
Does that
little
seem
bit
right?
younger. Um, I forget how old I was. I what I do
Early
remember.
20s.
Hang on, I might have even told you the wrong year. Hold on. No, that's only 8 years. Holy crap. No, I'm sorry. That happened when I was 17.
Okay,
Around
that's
17.
a
Oh,
big
not
difference.
2017, but when you were 17.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So not 2017. That was
so 10, 14, 14 years ago. So 2011
that sounds, yeah,
It
2011.
sounds right.
That sounds
ish,
about right.
2011. And
Yeah.
so around then is when you started working out, when you were 17, started working out, skateboarding, hurt your
Yeah,
shoulder.
yeah. I was like skateboarding for a while and moved into the suburbs. So then I kind of just like met some people that skateboarded as well. And then once that injury happened, I was like, it's either I'm going to potentially keep getting hurt or let me just work out so I can look better and be stronger. And I was like, I'm going to choose the latter. And so, I chose to continue working out. But then I would always run into that freaking issue of my shoulder. And I went to PT a bunch, and they were always just like, listen, like you can keep coming as much as you want, but you're going to need surgery. And for some reason in my head, I was like, no, I don't think you're right. I don't believe that our body doesn't have the intelligence to heal, and that just because that one cartilage is gone, that my shoulder's never going to be normal again. I don't believe that. And so for a while, I was just ignorant to it. And I just was like being stubborn, and I just continued pushing through it. And that's why on my Instagram, I always talk about like if you're feeling pain, like don't push through it because I did that for years,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
that made this bicep tendon super thick. That made my subscapularis super thick. And anytime those things are thick, that creates a massive issue because you're now having
yeah,
nerve compression, and now the
yes,
scapulas
yeah,
don't glide. And then that literally was, I used to feel pain, no kidding, from my ear down to my freaking toe. Like it was absurd, and like no one would ever. Everyone was always shocked every time I told them that. But
yeah,
yeah, it freaking sucked. And so eventually, when I did that, when I started doing the whole personal training thing, I started to be like, huh, I wonder if I can start to navigate my research towards just shoulder and how to make the shoulders better. And so I started little by little. And then, as I went to school, I learned a little more. As I went to the Czech Institute, I learned a little more. And then I just applied these methods together and started putting stuff together and learned from different people. And that's how I pretty much just came up with systems to make things stronger. I was like, start with the smallest muscles first, make them strong as fuck, and then we start to get to the bigger muscles. Because a lot of times someone can have big lats, big deltoids, big chest, but weak serratus, weak lower traps, um, weak obliques, and the combination of all those working together.
yeah. That makes sense. So is your shoulder? Are you back to normal? Can you lift?
Oh, I can lift
Do
now,
you hold weights
100%.
with your shoulder now?
I would say that 9 times out of 10, my shoulder is great. Sometimes
Hmm.
it flares up, but again, that's when I take myself back into the mode of like, all right, my body is just trying to communicate that I may have not been sharp on my meal plan recently, because I know I also learned that the stomach, at least through the nervous system, is connected because we share a nerve from the stomach into the left shoulder, and the liver to the right shoulder. So if we have some
Interesting.
issues, or actually, sorry, I have this reversed. But anyways, so if we have an issue in the liver, we're going to have an issue in that left shoulder. Or if we're trying to heal a shoulder and the liver's backed up, your body's going to prioritize the organ because that's more important for life. Because your body's going to be like, forget your shoulder, we got a liver to deal with. And
Yes.
that's how I got into more gut health and all that type of stuff too. And I mean, there's more to that story because I was also unfortunately vegan for like 7 years, which also destroyed my
Yeah.
gut. But no more of that.
I figured. I figured as much.
Well, and then if you
Yeah,
have,
because you just posted on your story about the steak. I
Yes,
saw that.
yes, like the ground beef and all that. Actually, I want to make a post about
You're like, actually, it was beyond me.
what's that?
You're like, actually, no, that was beyond me.
Oh my God, I can't even imagine if I can't.
So
Those,
you were probably vegan before that kind of stuff was online, right? Like before Beyond Meat, like Gardein, that sort of thing, right?
yeah, yeah, because I started doing the whole vegan thing when I was like, probably around the time I got that injury, like around 17, 18.
Oh lordy, that's also not good.
I know, right? And then I stopped when I was about 23, 24. And so it's a lot of years of doing that, and that 100% destroyed my gut too. And so that's why I had to learn about the gut and how that connects to everything else.
I feel like your immunity in your gut was probably not good, and just overall like stomach lining.
Oh, yeah, terrible. I mean, the amount of food that I would have to eat just to get enough protein to build muscle was absurd. It was,
Especially if that's from like beans, lentils, like stuff like that. That's so hard, like on like sulfur wise, like distension wise. That's so much to break down, and like the fiber that comes with it.
oh yeah.
Oh, that sounds like
The
He's like, you have no idea.
the gas was serious.
I I freaking bet. And then you probably don't even want to eat enough calories because you're like, I already feel so full and distended.
Yeah, I would probably eat like 1,700 calories and be like, "This is good. I'm full and I feel fine." And I thought that was normal, but it's obviously not.
So were you pretty like skinny?
Oh yeah, yeah, pretty skinny. At least at that time. When I was younger, I had like a chubby phase, but only for a couple years. But yeah, I was skinny and just lean, but I wasn't even as lean as I could have been because I was eating all that food and my body was just so backed up.
Crazy. Was it like a? If you don't mind me asking, why did you do the vegan?
Oh, it was crazy actually. I was so easily influenced at the time because what's that?
So we all were at 17 when we
Yeah. Oh
went
my
down.
God. And it's like, I think it aligned perfectly with like around that age, you have like this self righteousness that you have within yourself, and you're like, I need to prove things are right, and I need to prove that I can do things. And
Yeah.
so part of it was like that whole male thing of like I can do anything, but then the other part of it was kind of like that kind of like that feminine energy where you're like, I want to do good in the world and all these things. And so I came across this big truck that was having screens all over it. Actually, had like a Vans Warped Tour concert, and they had
Love that.
these screens all along it, and there was like a farm or something like that. And this guy was like, "Hey, do you want $5?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh, all you got to do is watch this video. It's 2 minutes." And I was like, "Sure." And so I stood there and I put the headphones on. I watched this video, and it was just like undercover footage of like how the animals got treated in factory farms and all this stuff. And I left there being like, "Wow, that's crazy. I never knew any of that." And obviously, like this the whole like notion of this is propagandized, right? Like instead of saying like don't eat meat, we can just say source your meat better. Source your meat
Yes.
from local farms that are actually treating the animals well. Because for me, it was like I'm trying to spare animals, but I was actually giving up the only drive, which, or I should actually, I'll word this differently. I was ignoring the only being that could actually make significant change in the world, which is the human
Yeah.
being. And so
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
literally declining in health because I said that animals shouldn't be eaten. But that's the trade that we make with them, kind of at a subconscious level. It's like I take care of you, but you take care of me because I can make the world a better place. You unfortunately can't. Like a cow can't, build things and create things with like we can, right? So
So,
that's
oh god.
now go for it. What's
I
up?
was gonna say, so when you were vegan, did it turn you off when like somebody ate like say a burger around you or chicken or like were you kind of like uh not don't do that around me, but kind of like I don't know. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
oh,
I've encountered some vegans that are like,
and that's like the whole thing about being vegan is like we always when I was in that mindset, I noticed that everybody that followed that same, we call it an ism, like a belief system of veganism,
Yeah. Yeah.
is you believe you're doing the right thing and like you believe you're doing it for kindness and greatness, but like you're people that eat meat around you, you're like a dick to them. And like
yeah,
that you're not doing
yeah.
good in the world if you're being a dick to people because they're just living their life and doing what they think is the right thing to do. right? And so I always found myself in that negative mindset and that framing of like anyone who does eat meat is a bad person because they know exactly what they're doing, and I need to convince more people of this. And yeah, it was again that whole self-righteous thing that I think a lot of people don't ever break out of. But luckily, at some point, I was like, "What am I doing?" Like literally, my skin was like yellow because I was getting no iron, and like probably hemoglobin was extremely low because what? How are you creating new blood and hemoglobin if you're not consuming meat, right?
Were you
What
taking
was your
supplements?
transfer back into eating meat? How was that experience for you? Or even like dairy products,
Yeah,
eggs?
it was actually pretty wild because it was right around the time that I met my wife, and
She's like, I'm not going to be with a vegan. Let's change this.
actually no, she was kind of on board with it. She was like,
Oh,
"Listen,
nice.
like I can do like low key vegetarian or whatever. I kind of eat like that already, so I don't really care. You do you."
Mm-hmm.
It being with her almost allowed me to release that need to be self righteous about something. I was like, let me just
That gave me
be.
chills. I love
What's that?
that. Gave me chills
Yeah,
because I could like see where you were going with it, and then you don't feel such an urge to tap into your own feminine energy because like she's also there and part of you.
100%. That was a big part of it too. And I was like, I don't need to prove anything. I am who I am. I attracted my dream partner. Why do I need to prove that not eating meat and making myself unhealthy is a good thing to do? It's just stupid. And so I slowly introduced dairy into my diet. Actually, the first thing I ate, you guys want to guess what I ate? The first thing?
Ice cream, frozen yogurt.
Close. Pizza.
I would say steak, but I mean,
I had a slice of pizza.
That's a good one.
nice.
That's a great one.
But that was actually around the same time that I wanted to do a bodybuilding competition, probably with probably in that upcoming year. So I ended up hiring a coach, and this coach is actually well known, but I just won't name him. But he was like, "Listen, like this is the meal plan that I want you to follow to get lean," and it was like a straight up bro bodybuilder diet. It was like white fish and asparagus, and it was like chicken breast with asparagus. So it was like every meal I feel like had asparagus in it. But once I started introducing all that meat into my diet, my system was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?"
I can only imagine.
Yeah, and so like the amount of apple cider vinegar I had to fucking consume was insane.
Was it with each meal? Did you do a tablespoon with every meal?
I probably had like three with every meal. Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, and think about it. Like, what what would you need stomach acid for if you're not truly consuming protein for seven
Yeah.
years? Like,
Yeah.
your body doesn't need to produce it, so it just starts like shutting that off. And then because of that,
Right.
I mean, you guys know what happens to your thyroid when your gut starts becoming dysregulated.
Oh yeah. Well, your thyroid
Yeah.
then regulates your bowel
Go back
movements
to
as
episode
well.
2, guys.
You could get
Exactly, guys. Listen to
dysbiosis.
episode 2.
Yeah,
Yeah.
insulin resistance. I mean, your the level of your stomach acid actually signals your pancreas in some ways, so you can influence insulin resistance based on the amount of stomach acid that you have.
That's actually
So
pretty cool.
that'd be curious. Like, I wonder what your blood glucose levels were like back then.
Wait, sorry, I didn't catch that last thing.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
It's a little
Can
bit
you?
on the quiet
Okay.
side for me.
I was curious what your blood glucose levels might have been back then too.
Oh, honestly, I have no idea. All I know is that it was really hard for me to lose body fat when I went into that phase, and it took me a while.
I'd
It was like
imagine.
probably like 3 years of working with a coach until I was finally able to start to see the results that I wanted to see, to digest a little bit better, and then eventually I stepped on stage. I think it was I think it's 2020.
2020.
Yeah, yeah.
Nice. How'd you
But
do?
My wild shot guess, this is a guess, would be that blood glucose is probably low in the morning, like high 70s, low 80s. But if we pulled labs, insulin would be high. That's my theory of what we would have seen.
why do you say
Why do you
that?
say that?
I just feel like, well, one, I'm thinking the high insulin due to your inability to lose body fat or it coming off really slowly, which once again probably ties into the thyroid and the stomach acid and everything else we just talked about.
Yeah.
But I feel like your calories, your overall calories, were at such a low spot that I feel like you probably weren't handling carbohydrates well, and there were a lot of peaks and falls and peaks and falls, so insulin kind of stayed out of the cell.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that
I
makes a
could
lot
be
of
totally
sense.
wrong. That's what I kind of came up with in my head. Like blood glucose on paper probably looked solid, maybe not postprandial, but if we pulled labs to look at insulin, I feel like that would be wonky.
Yeah, I mean that does make a lot of sense because I would usually, when I was vegan, I would wake up like starving, but then I would have
Mhm.
this like big heavy carbohydrate meal, and like I would just be so like sluggish afterwards.
Yeah.
And you're supposed to get energy from carbohydrates. I would get the opposite, which obviously there was a lot of deficiencies there too.
Micronutrient deficiencies too, like you said with the iron, but also like B vitamins, like kind of just everything.
Yeah, big time.
I was never vegan, but coming from a different, like I was going through like an eating disorder, so I wanted to try to take away food groups without it looking weird to those around me. So I was like, okay, I'm only going to eat like poultry. I'm going to cut beef and like pork, anything else, just eat like shrimp and chicken. So just like white meat.
And poultry.
Yeah. Yeah. As a way to be like, beef doesn't settle well in my stomach. I can't eat that. Whatever. So I remember when I added red meat back in. The first thing that I had, I vividly remember, and like why I didn't get something better, couldn't tell you. I got a steak bowl from Chipotle. That was great. That was a great experience for me.
You must have felt so good.
I did. I was like, wow, this is great. And I definitely had low iron at the time, of course, from like not eating hello, but like also I had no sources of iron like you, especially no source of like heme iron through red meat.
Yeah,
So
like, which is like the real iron that your body needs. You
right.
you just reminded me of this like crazy story from when I first had steak after a few years of not being vegan. I think it was maybe a couple years. And then I was like, all right, my gut's working better. I could digest meat better. Let's try a steak. So my wife and I, we cook a steak, and she wasn't eating red meat for a little while too because she was kind of vegetarian on her own thing.
Mhm.
And we both had a steak. I took one bite, fully chewed it, swallowed it, and it was probably like 8 or 9 p.m. And within seconds, my freaking pupils dilated and all the hair on my arm stood up. It was like my body was like, yes.
That's insane. That's insane.
And I had so much energy in that moment just from that one bite of steak. I was like, we can see the woods from our window where we were currently at. And I literally looked outside and I was like, babe, I can go sprinting in the woods right now. And she was like,
You're like, I am primal. I'm primed and I'm primal.
100%. She was like, please don't. But that's pretty cool that you feel that way. But yeah, I mean, that feeling was insane. But probably for the iron, right? Your body was your body needs that to just create life. And what are we without blood?
Yeah,
Uh,
literally.
were you supplementing when you were vegan? Were you taking supplements along with that?
No, I was barely taking supplements. I think I took like a multivitamin. And then I remember somebody was like, "Oh, you got to take this nutritional yeast for B12." So I would just like dump that on food. But other than that, no. I mean, that was pretty much it.
Dang, man, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's insane.
yeah.
So I need to. Oh, we lost Mac. I wanted to ask you. This has been like chipping away at me for a while. When you said it takes zero point 0.8 pounds of inflammation to shut off your TVA, walk me through that. What does that mean?
Yeah, so that's something I actually learned through the Czech Institute. But any sort of, for example, whenever we get inflammation in the gut, that means bloating, right? So the gut, or let's just call it the stomach and the intestines, they distend, right? If that's distended, we now have a stretch happening to the TVA from
Yeah,
internally. So
yeah,
naturally, your body's always going to prioritize organ health, and therefore it's not going to contract against the organs because it's like, oh, let's make space for that. Because
yeah.
something
That
wrong
makes
is
sense.
happening with this human being. Why are we going to activate the muscles that make them work, right? And
That makes a
so,
lot of sense. Yeah, okay. I was thinking way too far into that. I mean, that makes a ton of sense. You're like, why you're trying to elongate the muscles to make more room. Like,
exactly, and that's
yeah,
that's usually the avenue that I mean, when I say that to clients, they usually understand right away, like why their body's doing what it's doing. And it's like your body wants to prioritize life. Like your body and nervous system does not care about you being lean and being shredded and having all these muscles. Like it just cares that we're gonna live for the next few hours until the next day. And so it's gonna prioritize organs over anything. So, I mean, that's the hardest pill to swallow for some people that have lower back pain. And I've had clients where like don't want to change their diet, they don't want to lose, some weight to get that inflammation off and cut out the junk stuff that's destroying their gut. But because of that, they just continue having lower back pain and they can never get stronger. And they'll have bouts of like feeling really good, maybe for a few weeks to a couple of months, and then out of nowhere, boom, their lower back gets thrown out again by them just bending over. And I'm like, dude, just change your diet because your body's going to always prioritize what's on the inside. And if you're inflamed, like no duh, your lower back's going to hurt.
Do you find that people flare up? Let's say like somebody eats pretty clean, whole foods. They go on like a cruise vacation. They're eating a lot of like rancid oils, a lot of alcohol. When they come back, are they like, my pain is so much worse?
Not
Have you
always.
seen anything like that?
Not always. I see it sometimes. Like for example, I recently had a client. They went away to Portugal, which you're not really eating terrible foods when you're over there because it's pretty clean overall. But she did have some flare ups when she came back from it. But if I were to say in a general sense, I haven't seen that. But what I do typically see is because they're on that trip, they're also not doing the stuff that their body's supposed to
Right.
or needing to be done. Like they're not eating well, they're not stretching, they're not mobilizing, they're not moving and getting their blood moving, and they're not hydrating. So everything's just stiffening up. Yeah, I mean, I don't think we can relate it just to the food, but I think it's just like all of it.
I will see a lot of times gut permeability causing joint pain,
Me too.
just from a lot of that toxicity. Like if you have gut permeability and you also have joint pain, that if you handle the gut permeability, there's not going to be as much inflammation at the joints because your body's not trying to resolve systemic inflammation as much.
Yeah,
That will happen quite a bit.
yeah, 100%. I mean, that's like one of the number one things that I work on with my clients, and that's why I have to continue learning, of course, because everybody's gut responds to different things, and everybody's gut needs different things. But 100%, if there's gut permeability, you're gonna have joint inflammation, you're gonna have muscles that ache, you're gonna have I don't know, headaches.
Yes, and that happens. It happens so often. Gut permeability is very common these days, and I think it has to do with like I don't know. I've been trying to think about that quite a bit lately, but just kind of one. I think it has to be two things, maybe a combination of things, but at least one. The intermittent fasting slash coffee in the morning
Oof.
that damages his gut lining. That's
Mhm.
bad. But then throughout the day, it's like, okay, now at lunch we're gonna eat whatever. It might be a sandwich, maybe there's processed meats, whatever, like something that's like halfway nutritious, maybe.
Mhm.
But then at night, you're not getting enough nutrients, right? So then people will binge, and then they go to bed with their stomach distended and in pain. They're probably not
And
getting
then
very
they're
good
laying
sleep.
horizontal.
Yeah, they're laying in horizontal. You're probably not getting good sleep because your gut repairs itself at night. Like you have poor gut lining, sleep is a big reason for that. Because if you're just never going into an actual recovery state of being in that deep sleep, you're not going to recover.
And then you're not getting those GH pulses either.
Yeah, yeah. And so then at night, you have like these toxic foods built up sitting there all night. You're damaging your gut lining, you're not repairing it. And then the first thing you do in the morning is go for coffee on an empty stomach, damage it further, and then just
Dissolve.
live like that into
Dissolving.
infinity. Like,
Yeah,
it's so common. I think that's got to be a big reason why.
that's a freaking downward spiral right there for your entire body.
It really is. Because then you get bad sleep, and you're like, well,
And
now I
it's just
need
normal
coffee.
too.
And then you get addicted to coffee, and then you damage your gut line, and then it just, yeah, it keeps going.
It's normal to the average person.
Yeah.
That's
100%.
just life.
So
But
normal.
then they don't know. Like, you just don't know what it feels like to have good energy. I mean, like, there's been bouts this year with, like, having to prioritize business and a couple of things that have come up. Whatever it is, like, I start to drop off. Like maybe I'll miss a couple meals. Maybe I'm like having to stay up late one night. My sleep schedule is varying. My meals are varying. Like maybe there's a night where, I stress eat or something at night because that sometimes happens. Like I'll just have a long day. I haven't eaten very much. It's like I need some food. And so I'll just start eating everything that I can. And those days, I feel like shit. I don't have like very good mental clarity and I just operate at a lower vibrational state versus once I get back, one, sleep's on track, two, I'm eating on schedule and the right things. Like I have so much energy and I have all these ideas that come to me and like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to do that. And I almost like can't type out enough notes to keep up with all the ideas. You're like, this is what it feels like to have good energy.
Yeah.
And not a lot of people know what that feels like.
Yep.
Erik, before wrapping up, I want to ask you about your current fat loss phase and your goals with that.
Okay. Any specifics?
I want to
Just
know
like
how
in
you're
general?
journey with.
Sorry,
Oh, what'd you say?
any specifics or just like in general?
I'm just curious, like, what are your goals? Like, do you think you'd compete again? Are you just looking to get a little bit leaner? Like,
Oh, yeah.
what's your thought process going into it?
So right now, my goal is to get leaner, so that I can start to reverse up my calories to get back to about 3,500 calories because that's what I was consuming before and maintaining my body weight at about, I would say body fat was probably anywhere between like 13, 14%, and I was around like a 185, 189 ranging on certain days. And it took almost like a year where I wasn't training that hard. Wasn't training that often because my wife was pregnant, and so I wanted to be there for her. And then my son being born and all these things, and actually probably a little bit longer, over a year. And I realized, I mean, I lost so much muscle. I just like looked softer and all these things, and naturally, right? So yeah, so right now I'm just like, all right, let me first get leaner. Let me get to a body fat where I can feel comfortable increasing calories, where I can see the difference
I
over.
love that idea
Yeah, so this way I
of
come out.
jumping into fat loss first and then reversing from there, going into like a growth phase.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
always do that. Some people will argue with that. Some people say like if you don't have enough muscle, don't do a fat loss right away like that.
Hmm.
But I don't.
Well, I
That doesn't
think
make sense to me. Like if you're inflamed and you have too high a body fat, like increasing calories is going to be it's going to be a whole thing. I always on like anybody who comes to me is like, dude, I want to gain as much muscle as possible. I always do a fat loss phase first.
And I think too, like
Smart.
you're gonna be more insulin sensitive and you're gonna grow better from that leaner spot.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think too you can notice these things in the mirror a little bit more too. Like if you're, let's say we're at 10% body fat, where we're six packs, obliques are pretty lean, and then we start when we're at the point where we've gained 10 pounds. Okay, we can start to see, do I need to slow down the weight gain because I'm no longer at 10% body fat? Or am I still
Yes.
good? Do I still see these lines in the obliques and in the lower abs? Right? Because if we don't have that at all and we're building, then we don't know. Are we building fat? Are we building muscle? Or are we just
Yeah.
retaining water?
Totally agree.
Like
And
what's
usually, I
actually
mean, the
happening?
fatter you are, more of the weight you gain is going to be fat. And
Exactly.
that's just insulin resistance. That's systemic inflammation and insulin
I
resistance.
agree.
Right. Yeah. So that's pretty much why that approach. And it's just I think it's easier too. And it feels good. It's like kind of like a almost like a quicker return in a way because you do a fat
Yeah.
loss phase for.
You're gonna feel leaner going into the holidays, and then by that point you'll probably start like building your food up. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and it's like pretty good timing.
it is great timing. Great timing. I agree.
But yeah, that's where I'm at. It's summer too, so it kind of motivates you.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Awesome. Well, Erik, let everyone know where they can find you. I had a wonderful talk with you today. I'm sure Riley could say the same. I learned a ton on this
Yeah,
call.
this is great. There were
This
so many
content.
rabbit holes we could have gone down.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, I've had the most fun I've had this week here. So thank you, guys.
Aw.
Sweet.
I
Yeah.
We'll
appreciate
have
it.
to do it again.
Absolutely, I would love to anytime. But yeah, it's I'm Erik the Pain Resolver on Instagram, and that's where I mostly am. I'm also on TikTok as well, but that's where I just do some rants. I don't really do anything too serious
We love
there.
those too. That's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm
We're
on
building.
Instagram, and yeah, that's where people can find me.
Awesome.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
so
you,
much,
Erik.
guys.
Sweet. Cool. Well, thank you guys for listening. And yeah, we will talk to you all next time.
Awesome.